Her sandal lay alone in the dirt, 3 kilometers from the safety of the lodge. No blood, no body, just silence. 5 days of helicopters circling above the endless Ugandan savannah, rangers scouring the tall elephant grass, voices shouting her name into a wilderness that refused to answer. Yet the only trace of 23-year-old medical student Hannah Bergman was that single shoe. She wasn't reckless, she wasn't naive, she was brilliant, careful, and on the cusp of finishing medical school. And yet, in the very place she had dreamed of since childhood, she stepped into the night and simply vanished. This isn't just another missing tourist story. It's a disappearance that still haunts 2 continents, a story of ambition, love, and the dark unknown that waits when the rules of safety are broken, even for just one night. But if you look closely at her face in the photos from earlier that evening, you'll see she's smiling, relaxed, happy, even. There's no fear in her eyes, no indication that in less than 8 hours she would become the center of one of East Africa's most baffling disappearances. What happened in those 8 hours? Where did Hannah Bergman go? That's what we're here to find out. To understand how Hannah ended up alone in the African wilderness that night, you have to go back, way back, to a coffee shop in Amsterdam in 1999, where a young woman from Ohio met a Dutch bookshop owner and decided to change her life. Sarah Mitchell was 24 years old when she bought a one-way ticket to Europe. She'd grown up in a small town outside Cleveland, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where Friday nights mean high school football games, and where the biggest adventure most people have is a trip to Cedar Point Amusement Park. Sarah's parents were teachers. Her mother taught elementary school. Her father coached basketball and taught history. Education, service, community. These were the values Sarah grew up with. But Sarah wanted more. Not more in a greedy way, but more in the sense that she knew there was a whole world out there beyond Ohio, beyond America, and she needed to see it before she settled into the life everyone expected of her. So after graduating from Ohio State with a degree in education, she did something that shocked her entire family. She didn't apply for teaching jobs. She bought that ticket to Europe with money she'd saved from 3 years of waitressing, and she left. Her plan was simple: backpack for 6 months, see as much as possible, then return home and start her real life. Paris, Rome, Barcelona, Berlin. She hit all the major cities, staying in hostels, eating cheap food, soaking in the culture. By the time she reached Amsterdam in November, she was nearly out of money and starting to think about booking her flight home. That's when she walked into a small bookshop in the Jordaan district. The Jordaan is one of Amsterdam's most charming neighborhoods, narrow streets lined with independent shops, cafes tucked into centuries-old buildings, and canals reflecting the gabled houses that lean at impossible angles. The bookshop was called Bergman and Zoon, Bergman and Son, and it had been in the same family for 3 generations. Johannes Bergman Jan, to everyone who knew him, was 30 years old, the second-generation owner after his father's retirement. He'd grown up surrounded by books, had studied literature at the University of Amsterdam, and had never wanted to do anything except run that shop. Sarah walked in looking for an English translation of Anne Frank's diary to send to her mother. Jan helped her find it. They started talking. She mentioned she was American, from Ohio. He mentioned he'd always wanted to visit America but had never left Europe. She said his English was pretty good. He said her Dutch was non-existent, but he could teach her if she stayed long enough. She stayed. Not that day, of course, but she came back the next day, and the day after that. Jan started taking her on walks along the canals after the shop closed. He showed her the Amsterdam tourists never see: the hidden courtyards, the local cafes, the spots where you could watch the sunset reflect off the water. Sarah started picking up Dutch phrases. Jan's English got better, and somewhere between the Rijksmuseum and a tiny Indonesian restaurant in Dipijep, they fell in love. It was a collision of 2 worlds. American optimism meets Dutch pragmatism. Sarah's enthusiasm for everything. "Oh my God, Jan, look at that bridge. Look at those bikes. Why is everyone so tall?" Balanced against Jan's dry humor and straightforward nature. She wanted to experience everything immediately. He wanted to take his time, do things properly. Somehow, it worked. Finally, they made a decision. They got married in Sarah's hometown church in Ohio, a small ceremony that blended their 2 worlds. Sarah's mother cried through the entire service. Jan's parents flew over from Amsterdam, charmed by American hospitality and slightly overwhelmed by the portion sizes at the rehearsal dinner. The reception featured both a traditional American wedding cake and Dutch stroopwafels that Jan's mother had packed in her suitcase. After the wedding, Sarah made the choice that changed everything. She would move to Amsterdam. It wasn't easy leaving her parents, her hometown, everything familiar. But she loved Jan, and she'd fallen in love with Amsterdam during her visits. She packed her life into 3 suitcases, said tearful goodbyes at the airport, and moved into Jan's apartment above the bookshop in the Jordaan. She found work teaching English to Dutch business people, helping them with presentations and negotiations. The adjustment was harder than she'd expected. The language barrier, the cultural differences, the homesickness that hit at unexpected moments. But Jan was patient, and slowly, Amsterdam became home. And in October 2002, Hannah was born. Hannah Elizabeth Bergman came into the world at Amsterdam Medical Center on a rainy Tuesday morning. From the very beginning, she existed between 2 worlds. American passport, Dutch accent, celebrated Thanksgiving with turkey and pumpkin pie in November, then Sinterklaas with chocolate letters and peppernoten in December, spoke English with her mother, Dutch with her father, and switched between them so seamlessly that by age 5, she didn't even notice she was doing it. The Bergmans lived in that narrow canal house in the Jordaan, the same building that housed the bookshop on the ground floor. Hannah's childhood was spent surrounded by books, by the smell of old paper and coffee from the cafe next door, by the sound of bicycle bells and tourists speaking a dozen different languages. When her brother Luca was born in 2005, the family felt complete. But here's what you need to understand about Hannah. From the very beginning, she was a documenter. While other kids played, Hannah watched. While other kids lived in the moment, Hannah wanted to capture the moment. Her parents gave her a disposable camera for her 7th birthday, and she went through it in 2 days, photographing everything: the cat, the dog, her brother sleeping, the view from her bedroom window, the boats on the canal. Sarah would find notebooks filled with Hannah's observations. Today I saw a heron catch a fish. It took 3 tries. The fish was silver. Or, Biscuit, that was their golden retriever. Biscuit wagged his tail 47 times when Papa came home. Hannah didn't just experience life. She documented it, analyzed it, tried to understand it, and she loved animals with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Her bedroom walls were covered with posters: elephants, lions, dolphins, wolves. She had encyclopedias about wildlife that she'd read cover to cover. The family had a monthly tradition of visiting Artis, Amsterdam's Royal Zoo, and while Luca would get bored after an hour, Hannah could spend an entire day just watching the gorillas, noting their behaviors, sketching them in her notebook. "I want to work where animals roam free," she told her parents when she was 10. "Not behind glass, not in cages, free." Every July, the family would fly to Ohio to visit Sarah's parents. For Hannah, these trips were culture shock in reverse. Suburban America was so different from urban Amsterdam. The houses were huge and spread out. Everyone drove cars instead of riding bikes. There were strip malls and chain restaurants and backyards with grass that seemed to stretch forever. Hannah documented all of it: the 4th of July fireworks, the county fair, her grandmother's garden, the fireflies that didn't exist in the Netherlands. It was during one of these trips, when Hannah was 12, that her grandmother gave her a real leather journal. "For your observations," her grandmother said. "Every important person keeps a journal." Hannah filled it within 3 months, then another, then another. By the time she was a teenager, she had dozens of journals, a written record of her entire life. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Hannah's story, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us continue investigating cases like this, and if there are any updates in Hannah's case, you'll be notified immediately. Your support means everything. The teenage years brought new complexity. Hannah was brilliant, there's no other word for it. She excelled at school, particularly in sciences. Biology fascinated her. The mechanics of life, the way bodies worked, the intersection of human and animal physiology, she couldn't get enough. By the time she was 16, she knew she wanted to study medicine. But there was a question looming. Where? Sarah had always assumed Hannah would eventually move to America for university. It's what Sarah herself had planned before she met Jan: get a degree, start a career, build a life in the States. And America had incredible medical schools. The Ohio State University, where Sarah had gone for undergrad, had one of the best programs in the world. Hannah applied. She got in. Full acceptance to the Ohio State University's pre-med program, starting fall 2018. And then, 3 months before she was supposed to leave, Hannah withdrew her acceptance. The family dinner where she announced this decision was tense. Sarah felt rejected, like Hannah was rejecting her heritage, her country, the opportunities Sarah had given up by staying in Amsterdam. "Do you understand what you're turning down?" Sarah asked. "Ohio State University is one of the best schools in the world." "I know, Mom," Hannah said quietly. "I love America. I love visiting. I love Grandma and Grandpa. But I want to go to a Dutch school." Hannah applied to the University of Amsterdam Medical School. The acceptance rate was less than 10%. She got in. Medical school in Amsterdam is brutal. 6 years of intensive study, clinical rotations, exams that determine your entire future. Hannah threw herself into it completely. She joined a study group of 5 students from different backgrounds. There was Martin from Rotterdam, Aisha from Morocco, Chen from China, and Sophie from Belgium. They became inseparable, spending 18-hour days in the anatomy lab, quizzing each other over coffee at 3 in the morning, supporting each other through the inevitable breakdowns that come with that level of pressure. Hannah was the emotional center of the group. She remembered everyone's birthday. She knew when someone was struggling and needed to talk. She was the one who organized study breaks, who insisted they actually eat meals instead of surviving on coffee and stress, who reminded them why they'd chosen this impossible path in the first place. But that documenting instinct never went away. For her 21st birthday, her parents gave her a professional camera, the kind photographers use. Hannah started filming everything. Daily video logs, day 847 of medical school, and I've forgotten what sleep feels like, but I successfully identified all 12 cranial nerves on the cadaver today, so that's something. She started an Instagram account, at Hannah Explores NL. It wasn't anything fancy, just her life: medical school, Amsterdam, weekend trips around the Netherlands, her dog, her brother, her friends. But people connected with it. Her authenticity, her humor, the way she showed both the incredible moments and the hard moments. By her final year, she had 12,000 followers. She filmed everything, her friend Sophie would later tell investigators. Everything. It was just part of who she was. If Hannah was there, there was a camera. In the fall of 2022, during her 4th year of medical school, Hannah met Peter van der Meer at a party on a friend's houseboat. Houseboats are a big thing in Amsterdam. People live on them permanently, moored along the canals, and they're amazing spaces for parties because, well, you're literally floating on water in the middle of the city. Peter was 25, studying architecture at TU Delft, about an hour south of Amsterdam. His background was similar to Hannah's in an interesting way. His father was American, from Boston, and his mother was Dutch, from Rotterdam. He'd grown up navigating 2 cultures, 2 languages, 2 identities. He understood what it meant to belong to 2 places and to none completely. They talked for 2 hours at that party, barely noticing when other people came and went. Their first real date was at the Van Gogh Museum, where they spent so long debating the meaning of the Starry Night that security had to tell them the museum was closing. Peter was steady, thoughtful, a planner. Hannah was spontaneous, emotional, always chasing the next experience. Somehow, like her parents before her, they balanced each other. Their relationship developed a rhythm. Late-night video calls after Hannah's hospital rotations, weekend mornings at Café de Prins in the Jordaan, where they'd split an apple tart and read the newspapers. Saturday cinema dates at Pathé de Mont, always action films, which surprised Peter because he'd assumed Hannah would want romantic comedies, but she said real life had enough emotions without adding fictional ones. Peter's family loved her. His parents hosted Sunday dinners at their place in Rotterdam, and Hannah fit right in, helping his mother cook, debating politics with his father, playing video games with his younger sister. "She's going to change the world," his mother told him once. "Don't let her go." But there was a tension underneath, something Hannah wrote about in her journals but never quite said out loud. She loved Peter, she really did. But she was terrified of losing herself the way she sometimes felt her mother had. Sarah had given up America, given up her original plans, reshaped her entire life around Jan and the bookshop and Amsterdam. And Sarah seemed happy, truly happy. But Hannah wondered, what would Sarah have become if she'd made different choices? "I love him," Hannah wrote in her journal 6 months before the trip to Uganda. "But I need to prove I can stand alone first. Is that selfish? Is it fair to him? I don't know. I just know that if I don't do something big, something that's entirely mine, I'll always wonder who I could have been." The something big was coming. She just didn't know it yet. Medical school in the Netherlands requires an internship. It's a chance to experience medicine in a different context, to see how healthcare works in other parts of the world, to challenge yourself outside the comfortable, well-resourced Dutch medical system. Hannah chose Kampala, Uganda for her internship. When she announced this at Sunday dinner at Peter's parents' house, there was a long silence. Then everyone started talking at once. "Uganda?" Sarah said. "Hannah, do you know what the medical facilities are like there?" "That's exactly why I want to go," Hannah replied. "I've been in climate-controlled rooms my whole life. I want to see medicine where it matters most." "It's dangerous," Peter said quietly. "It's not dangerous. Thousands of people visit Uganda every year. It's a stable country, and the hospital has an established international internship program." "What about us?" Peter asked. Even quieter. Hannah reached for his hand. "It's just an 8-week program. We'll video call every day, and when I come back, I'll be done with school. We can finally start planning our future." But there was something else, something she didn't say at that dinner table. She wanted to see the animals. The real ones, the wild ones, the ones she dreamed about since she was 7 years old with her first disposable camera. Uganda had mountain gorillas, tree-climbing lions, elephants, hippos, crocodiles. Uganda had Murchison Falls National Park, one of the most spectacular wildlife reserves in Africa. She applied to Lubaga Hospital in Kampala. It's the oldest private hospital in Uganda, established in 1899 as a Catholic mission hospital. It serves over 300,000 patients annually, and it has a well-respected international internship program that attracts 20 to 30 medical students every year. Hannah was accepted. The next few months were a whirlwind of preparation: vaccinations, yellow fever, typhoid, hepatitis A and B, meningitis, rabies, visa applications, travel insurance. She bought a travel medical kit, camping gear, extra camera batteries, portable hard drives for backing up footage. She researched everything about Uganda, the history, the culture, the language. She learned basic Luganda phrases. She promised her parents she'd call every day. She promised Pieter she'd video call every night. She promised Luca, who was 19 and in his first year at university, that she'd bring him back something cool. "Don't fall in love with lions," Peter said at the airport, trying to make it sound like a joke. "I'll try," Hannah said. "No promises about elephants, though." She boarded the flight on February 15, 2024, KLM to Entebbe International Airport, with a connection in Nairobi. When she landed in Uganda, the first thing that hit her was the heat, a wall of humid warmth that felt like being wrapped in a wet blanket. The second thing was the smell, rain and charcoal and flowers all at once, completely unlike anything in Amsterdam. Her first video call home, she was almost breathless with excitement. "Mom, it's incredible. It's so different. Everything is so alive." She moved into a shared house in Makindye, a neighborhood in Kampala, with 3 other international interns. Sofia Kowalski, 24, from Krakow, Poland, focused on surgical training. James O'Brien, 26, from Dublin, Ireland, interested in infectious diseases. And Yuki Tanaka, 23, from Osaka, Japan, specializing in pediatrics. 4 medical students from 4 different countries, thrown together in a city none of them knew, about to experience medicine in a way their textbooks never prepared them for. The first week at Lubaga Hospital was overwhelming. The patient loads were massive, hundreds of people waiting for care, limited resources, equipment that would have been retired decades ago in European hospitals. Hannah was assigned to the maternity ward, and on her third day, she helped deliver her first baby. The mother was 16 years old. There was no pain medication available. The girl sang through the contractions a traditional Ugandan song her own mother had taught her. Hannah held her hand, coached her breathing, and when the baby finally came, healthy and screaming, Hannah cried. That night, she wrote in her journal, "Delivered my first baby today. Mother was 16. No pain medication available. She sang through the contractions. I'll never forget her strength. This is why I came here. This is medicine that matters." The 4 interns bonded quickly. They had to. They were each other's support system in a challenging environment. Weekend mornings, they'd explore Kampala together, a Owino market, where you could buy anything from fabric to electronics to live chickens. The National Mosque, with its views over the city. Local restaurants where they'd try Ugandan food matoke, posho, groundnut sauce, Rolex, which isn't a watch but a chapati rolled with eggs and vegetables. Sophia was intense, driven, the kind of person who studied even on days off. James was laid back, always cracking dark humor jokes in the supply room to cope with the hard cases. Yuki was quiet but brilliant, with an eye for diagnostics that impressed even the senior doctors. And Hannah was the documentarian, always with her camera, always filming, always trying to capture what this experience meant. By March, they were talking about what to do after the internship ended in April. They'd all grown to love Uganda, but they also missed home. Someone suggested doing a proper safari tour before leaving a last adventure together, a way to see the Uganda that existed beyond the hospital walls. The hospital administrator recommended Murchison Falls National Park. "It's the largest park in Uganda," he told them. "You'll see elephants, lions, giraffes, hippos, crocodiles, and the falls themselves are spectacular. If you only do one safari in your life, make it Murchison." They decided on 5 days, 4 nights, all 4 of them, with a professional guide. Hannah's excitement was palpable. "This is why I came to Africa," she told Peter on a video call. "The medicine, yes, but also this, to see the animals I've dreamed about my whole life," she told. Peter smiled, but there was something sad in his eyes. "Just be safe, okay?" "Always," she promised. Before we continue with what happened next, I want to ask you to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. This story gets more complex and more mysterious, and your support helps us continue investigating cases like Hannah's. Plus, if there are any breaks in this case, subscribers will be the first to know. The final months of the internship flew by. March passed in a blur of long shifts, difficult cases, small victories, and heartbreaking losses. Hannah was changing. Everyone could see it. Her letters home had a different tone, more confident, more independent, more certain of who she was and what she wanted. "She sounds different," Sarah told Jan after reading one of Hannah's emails. "Like she's found something." However, Peter noticed it too, but for him, it felt like loss. "She sounds distant," he confided to his sister, "like I'm losing her." The video calls became shorter, less frequent. Hannah blamed the time difference, the exhaustion, the unreliable internet, and those things were true. But there was something else, something she wrote about in her journal but couldn't quite articulate to Peter. "I'm becoming someone I didn't know I could be," she wrote on March 30th. "I'm stronger here, more capable, more myself. Will he still love that person? Will I still fit into the life we were planning?" On April 15th, the internship officially ended. There was a certificate ceremony at Lubaga Hospital, emotional goodbyes to patients and staff who'd become like family. The 8 weeks had completed their rotations, fulfilled their requirements, and were technically free to go home. But they'd already booked the safari. Hannah called her parents. "Just 5 more days, then I'm home, I promise." Luca got on the phone. "Bring me back a lion's tooth." "I'll see what I can do," Hannah laughed. Sarah felt uneasy, though she couldn't explain why. "Something in my gut told me to tell her to come home right then," she'd later tell investigators. "But I didn't want to be the overprotective mother. I didn't want to ruin her adventure, so I just said, 'Be safe, sweetheart. We love you.'" "Love you too, Mom." That was the last time Sarah spoke to her daughter. April 16th and 17th were spent preparing. shopping in Kampala for safari supplies, sunscreen, bug spray, extra memory cards for cameras, snacks for the drive. They'd booked through Uganda Wild Safaris, a reputable company that had been operating for 15 years. Their guide was Moses Odongo, 38 years old, an experienced wildlife tracker who'd been guiding tours for 12 years. The itinerary was straightforward: Murchison Falls National Park, 5 days and 4 nights, staying at Para Safari Lodge, one of the most established accommodations in the park. On April 17th, at 6:47 p.m., Hannah made her last Instagram post. It was a photo of the 4 interns, Hannah, Sophia, James, and Yuki, standing in front of their packed safari van, grinning at the camera. The caption read, "Into the wild, finally." The post got 847 likes. There were dozens of comments: friends from Amsterdam, family members, followers who'd been watching her Uganda journey. Most were excited for her, telling her to have an amazing time, to take lots of photos. Peter commented, "Be safe." It was the last communication between them. The drive from Kampala to Murchison Falls National Park takes about 4 hours, heading northwest through Uganda's countryside. The landscape transforms gradually the urban sprawl of the city, giving way to small towns, then villages, then rural farmland, and finally, as you get closer to the park, the untamed wilderness that has existed here for millennia. Moses drove, keeping up a running commentary about the history of the park, safety protocols, what they could expect to see. He was good at his job, knowledgeable, friendly, but also serious about the rules. "Never wander alone," he told them. "Never leave your room after dark. The animals in this park are wild, not pets. They don't know you're a tourist. To them, you're either a threat or prey. Respect them, respect the rules, and you'll have the experience of a lifetime." Hannah filmed everything from the van window: the red dirt roads, the villages where children waved at passing vehicles, the acacia trees that dotted the landscape like umbrellas. The first glimpse of true wilderness: no buildings, no power lines, just land stretching to the horizon. They entered the park through the main gate at 11:30 a.m. on April 18th. The first animal they saw was a Uganda cob, a type of antelope, grazing peacefully about 50 meters from the road. Hannah's video narration, recovered later from her camera, captures her excitement. "This is it. This is everything I imagined. We're not even properly in the park yet, and there's already wildlife everywhere. I can't believe this is real." Para Safari Lodge sits on the northern bank of the Nile River, right in the heart of Murchison Falls National Park. It's a beautiful place, luxury accommodations in the middle of wilderness, with a main lodge building, a restaurant, a pool, and individual rooms spread out along the riverbank. From the terrace you can watch hippos in the water and elephants coming to drink at dusk. They checked in just after noon. Hannah and Yuki shared one room. Sophia and James shared another. Moses had separate guide quarters. The rooms were nice, comfortable beds, private bathrooms, air conditioning, a small balcony. Hannah immediately set up her camera equipment, charging batteries, organizing memory cards. "I'm going to fill every single one of these," she told Yuki, holding up a stack of 64 gigabytes cards. That afternoon, they went on their first game drive. Moses drove them in an open-top vehicle through the savannah, and it was everything Hannah had dreamed of. Elephants, not one or two, but entire herds, including babies. Giraffes, moving in slow motion across the plains. Buffalo in massive groups, hundreds strong. Warthogs trotting with their tails straight up like antennas. And everywhere, birds, eagles, hornbills, bee-eaters, in colors that didn't seem real. They drove down to the Nile, where crocodiles basked on the banks, their prehistoric bodies perfectly still. Hippos floated in the water, just their eyes and ears visible, deceptively calm for animals that kill more people in Africa than any other large animal. Moses told them stories, local legends, conservation efforts, the ongoing problems with poaching. He pointed out tracks in the dirt, explaining which animals had passed and when. He had an encyclopedic knowledge of the park, and Hannah peppered him with questions, her camera rolling constantly. The sunset that evening was spectacular. Golden hour in the African savannah is something you have to see to believe. The light turns everything amber and rose, the shadows stretch impossibly long, and for a brief window, the whole world looks like it's glowing. They returned to the lodge exhausted and exhilarated. Dinner was at the lodge restaurant, Ugandan food with some international options, served buffet style. The four interns sat together, reliving the day's highlights. Hannah was animated, leading the conversation, already planning what she wanted to see tomorrow. Yuki was quieter but clearly happy, showing everyone the photos she'd taken on her phone. James joked about almost being charged by a warthog, which hadn't actually happened but made for a good story. Sophia critiqued the tour organization, wanting more structure, a more efficient route, but even she admitted it had been an incredible day. Hannah tried to video call Peter, but the internet connection at the lodge was terrible. She managed to get through to her parents, though. "Mom, Dad, I saw elephants today. Real wild elephants, not in a zoo, just living their lives. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." That night, Hannah stayed up late in the room, reviewing her footage, making notes in her journal. Yuki fell asleep to the sound of Hannah's keyboard clicking. It was peaceful, normal. The first of what should have been 4 perfect days. They woke before dawn on April 19th for the morning boat safari. There's something magical about the African wilderness at sunrise. The air is cool, the light is soft, and the animals are active after the night's rest. The boat launch was at 6 a.m., heading up the Nile toward Murchison Falls. The river was calm, reflecting the pink and orange sky. Along the banks, they saw elephants coming down to drink, their trunks sucking up water and spraying it over their backs. Crocodiles slipped into the water as the boat approached, disappearing beneath the surface. Hippos watched them pass, grunting their territorial warnings. And then, as they got closer to the falls, they heard the thunder of water. Murchison Falls is where the entire Nile River forces itself through a gap in the rocks just 7 meters wide, then plunges 43 meters down in a violent, spectacular cascade. The spray creates a permanent mist, and in the morning light, there was a rainbow arcing through it. Hannah's camera captured her reaction. "If I died right now, I'd die happy." It's a haunting piece of footage to watch now, knowing what would happen less than 18 hours later. They returned to the lodge around 10:30 a.m. for brunch and a midday rest. Safari schedules typically avoid the hottest part of the day. The animals are less active, and it's uncomfortable for tourists. So there was free time from about 11 to 2. Hannah sat by the pool, editing footage on her laptop. Yuki napped. Sophia read medical journals even on vacation. She couldn't fully disconnect from work. James explored the lodge grounds, chatting with staff, taking photos. At 1:15 p.m., Hannah's phone rang. It was Peter, finally able to connect. She answered, but the conversation didn't go well. You could hear it in her voice on the video she recorded later. That afternoon there was a tension, a distance. He asked if I was having a good time. She told Yuki later, and when I said yes, he got quiet, like he was upset that I was happy without him. I don't know, maybe I'm reading into it. "Did you tell him you miss him?" Yuki asked. "I do miss him, but I don't know. I feel guilty for being this happy. Does that make sense?" It made perfect sense. Hannah was caught between 2 versions of herself, the one who loved Peter and wanted a future with him, and the one who was discovering she could be complete on her own, that she didn't need anyone else to feel whole. The afternoon game drive started at 3 p.m. They took a different route this time, heading into the northern sector of the park. The landscape was different here, more open plains, fewer trees, better visibility. And then they found the lions. A pride of 11, 3 males, 5 females, 3 cubs. They were resting in the shade of an acacia tree, completely relaxed, occasionally swatting at flies with their tails. Moses stopped the vehicle about 30 meters away. Close enough for incredible photos, but far enough to be safe. Hannah filmed for 20 minutes straight. The lions barely moved, but it didn't matter. Just being in their presence, watching them breathe, seeing the cubs play fight while the adults dozed, it was transcendent. "This is the closest I'll ever be to heaven," Hannah said on camera. But the group dynamic was starting to shift. Sophia had been making comments throughout the drive, criticizing Moses's route choices, suggesting he should have taken them to different areas, questioning his expertise. Moses handled it professionally, but you could see James getting annoyed. "He's been doing this for 12 years, James said. "Maybe trust that he knows what he's doing?" I'm just saying we could be more efficient, Sophia replied. We're on safari, not in surgery. Relax. The tension simmered but didn't boil over. They returned to the lodge as the sun set, dust-covered and tired. It had been another incredible day, but something had shifted in the group's energy. After showers and fresh clothes, they met for dinner at 7:30 p.m. The lodge restaurant served a mix of Ugandan and international cuisine, and the four of them sat at a table on the terrace, overlooking the Nile. James, perhaps trying to recapture the excitement of the previous night, suggested they do a night game drive. Moses had mentioned that some parks allow them. You can see nocturnal animals, different behaviors, a whole other side of the wilderness. But night drives aren't allowed in Murchison Falls. Too dangerous. The animals are more active, more aggressive. The risk is too high. We should stick to the rules, Sophia said, which was ironic given that she'd been questioning Moses's decisions all day. Yeah, let's not push it, Hannah agreed. We literally saw lions today, let's not get greedy. James backed down, but the atmosphere was tense. They finished dinner mostly in silence, then moved to the lodge bar for drinks. Hannah had 2 glasses of wine, which was unusual for her. She typically didn't drink much, especially not on consecutive nights. By 9:30 p.m., they were all ready for bed. Early wake-up call tomorrow for another dawn activity. They said goodnight and headed to their rooms. Hannah and Yuki's room was quiet. Hannah wanted to continue editing footage. She had hours of material from the day and was trying to organize it, add notes, back everything up to her portable hard drives. But Yuki wanted lights out. She was exhausted, and they had to be up at 5:30 a.m. Can you just do that tomorrow? Yuki asked. I'm almost done, Hannah said, her laptop screen bright in the dark room. You said that an hour ago. The rooms were adjoining Hannah and Yuki in one, Sophia and James in the other, with a connecting door that they usually kept open. Sophia heard the exchange and came in, taking Yuki's side. You've been on that camera non-stop, Sophia said. Take a break. This is my work, Hannah replied, an edge in her voice. This matters to me. It's obsessive. You're here with us, but you're not really here. That stung. Hannah looked up from her laptop. What's that supposed to mean? You know what? You've been selfish this whole trip. Excuse me? Everything has to be about what you want. Your shots, your schedule, your footage. The rest of us are just background characters in your documentary. That's not fair. In fact, Yuki, caught in the middle, tried to de-escalate. Maybe everyone just needs sleep. Maybe everyone just needs sleep. But Sophia wasn't done. No, I'm done pretending. You came to Africa to run away from your life, and you're dragging us into your identity crisis. The words hung in the air. Hannah stared at Sophia, her face flushed. Then she closed her laptop, grabbed her phone and earbuds, and stood up. You know what? I'm not doing this. Hannah, Yuki started. I need air. I'll be on the terrace. I'll be back in an hour. She grabbed her room key from the nightstand and walked out. The door closed behind her with a soft click. The timestamp on the lodge's internal security system shows 10:17 p.m. Inside the room, Sophia and Yuki stood in silence for a moment. She'll be fine, Sophia finally said. She needs to cool off. Yuki wasn't so sure, but she was exhausted. They turned off the lights and went to bed, assuming Hannah would come back quietly, that they'd all apologize in the morning, that this was just the kind of minor conflict that happens when people spend too much time together in stressful situations. They had no idea that Hannah would never come back. Here's what we know about Hannah's last hours, pieced together from security footage, phone records, and the digital forensics analysis of her devices. 10:17 p.m. Hannah leaves the room. She's wearing a white cotton t-shirt, khaki shorts, and hiking sandals. She's carrying her iPhone and earbuds. Her room key is in her pocket. 10:23 p.m. Lodge security camera footage shows Hannah entering the terrace area. The terrace is a large outdoor space with tables and chairs overlooking the Nile. It's dimly lit, with solar-powered lamps providing ambient light. Hannah walks to a corner table, the farthest from the main building, and sits down. Her phone is illuminated. She's scrolling, probably social media or messages. 10:31 p.m. Phone activity logs, later retrieved by police, show that Hannah opens Spotify and creates a playlist called Night Sounds. Then she sends a WhatsApp message to Pieter. "I'm sorry about earlier. Can we talk tomorrow? I love you." The message shows as delivered but not read. Pieter was asleep in Amsterdam, where it was 11:31 p.m. Hannah then opens Instagram and scrolls her feed for 4 minutes. She doesn't post anything. She's just looking, maybe trying to distract herself, maybe feeling homesick. 10:47 p.m. Hannah takes a photo. It's a selfie, taken with her phone's front camera. She's smiling, earbuds visible in her ears, the lodge lights glowing in the background behind her. The geotag places her on the terrace at Pará Safari Lodge. She never posts it to social media. It stays in her camera roll, one of the last photos ever taken of Hannah Bergman. If you look closely at the photo, there's no one else visible in the frame, no signs of distress. She looks peaceful, maybe a little sad, but not afraid. 11:03 p.m. The lodge night manager, making his rounds, passes through the terrace. He sees Hannah still sitting there. Later, in his testimony to police, he says, "She looked peaceful. I thought she was just enjoying the night. I didn't speak to her. I wish I had." This is the last confirmed human sighting of Hannah Bergman. Between 11:03 p.m. and 11:45 p.m., there's a gap. No camera coverage of that section of the terrace. No witnesses. But we have phone data. April 20th, 6 a.m. Wake-up call for the dawn game drive. Yuki woke up and immediately noticed Hannah's bed was empty. Not just empty, it hadn't been slept in. The covers were still made from housekeeping the day before. Initial assumption: Hannah was an early riser. Maybe she'd gone to breakfast, or maybe she was already on the terrace, watching the sunrise. 6:15 a.m. Yuki got dressed and went to the restaurant. No Hannah. She checked the terrace. Empty. She went back to the room and woke Sophia. "Have you seen Hannah?" "What? No. Isn't she with you?" Her bed wasn't slept in. They found James and checked with him. He hadn't seen her. They asked lodge staff. "Blonde woman, always has a camera. Have you seen her?" No one had. 6:30 a.m. They found Moses and told him Hannah was missing. His reaction was immediate concern. In safari lodges, a missing guest is an emergency. The dangers are real and immediate. "When was she last seen?" Moses asked. "Last night," Yuki said, her voice shaking. "Around 10:30. She was upset. She went to the terrace to cool off." Moses immediately notified lodge management. Protocol kicked in. This wasn't a guest sleeping in or going for a walk. This was a potential crisis. 6:45 a.m. to 8 a.m. Lodge staff conducted a thorough search of the grounds. Every room, every building, the pool area, the gardens, the paths. They checked her room carefully. Her camera equipment was still there, lenses, batteries, her laptop. Her passport was there, her wallet. The only things missing were Hannah herself, her phone, and the clothes she'd been wearing. Moses found something on the terrace, Hannah's room key, sitting on the table where she'd been sitting. No signs of struggle, no blood, no indication of what had happened. 8 a.m. Masindi District. Police were contacted. Uganda Wildlife Authority rangers were dispatched. This was now an official search and rescue operation. The 3 remaining interns were interviewed separately. Yuki was guilt-ridden, crying, "I should have gone with her. I should have made sure she came back." Sophia was defensive. "How was I supposed to know she wouldn't come back?" People argue. "It happens. She was supposed to cool off and come back." James was in shock. "This doesn't happen. People don't just vanish. There has to be an explanation." Search parameters were established. 5-kilometer radius from the lodge. The terrain was challenging: dense bush, open savanna, the riverbank, with its crocodiles and hippos, and everywhere, the animals, lions, leopards, buffalo, any of which could kill a human. Time was critical. Every hour that passed decreased the odds of finding Hannah alive. Helicopters were brought in. Ground teams spread out in a grid pattern. Moses used his tracking skills, looking for footprints, broken vegetation, any sign of which direction she might have gone. Nothing. By the end of the first day, there was no trace of Hannah Bergman. The Netherlands embassy was contacted. Sarah and Jan Bergman received a phone call that no parent should ever get. "Your daughter is missing in Uganda. We're doing everything we can to find her." Peter got a call from Yuki. He collapsed. The last message from Hannah, still unread on his phone. "I'm sorry about earlier. Can we talk tomorrow? I love you." Media began covering the story. Dutch medical student missing in Uganda Safari Park. It started in Dutch news, then spread internationally. Hannah's Instagram photo, "Into the Wild," finally, was shared thousands of times. And still, no sign of her. If this story is affecting you, please take a moment to like this video and share it. The more people who know Hannah's face and her story, the better the chance that someone, somewhere, might have information that could help. And please subscribe if there are any developments in this case. You'll be notified immediately. Day 2 of the search. Day 3. Day 4. Helicopters crisscrossing the park, ground teams pushing deeper into the wilderness. Search dogs brought in, trying to pick up a scent. Nothing. And then, on Day 5, a discovery. A search team 3 kilometers from the lodge, working through a dense thicket of acacia trees, found something. A single hiking sandal. Right foot. Women's size 38 European, which converts to size 7.5 American. The sandal was undamaged. No blood, no tears, just a sandal lying in the dirt. Sophia, Yuki, and James were asked to identify it. "That's Hannah's," Yuki confirmed, her voice barely a whisper. But how did one sandal end up 3 kilometers from the lodge, in a thicket off any established path? The next day, the same search team made another discovery. 400 meters from where they'd found the sandal, they found clothes. A white cotton t-shirt, khaki shorts. The clothes were torn but not shredded. There were no blood stains. They were dirty, with marks from vegetation and soil. The shorts were turned inside out. And they were laid out, not scattered randomly, but placed almost deliberately. Forensic analysis confirmed they were Hannah's. DNA testing was conclusive, but there was no DNA from anyone else on the clothes. No animal saliva, no claw marks, no bite marks. The clothes had been there for 3 to 5 days, based on environmental exposure analysis. But here's what made no sense. The condition of the clothes was inconsistent with an animal attack. When a predator takes down prey, there's violence, there's blood, there's tearing and shredding. These clothes looked like they'd been removed, not torn off. Inconsistent with animal attack, the forensic pathologist concluded. So if not an animal, then what? The search continued. Weeks passed. The missing items, her left sandal, her earbuds, were never found despite extensive electronic searches and metal detector sweeps. And Hannah's body was never found. When someone vanishes without a trace, theories multiply. Everyone has an explanation, a hypothesis, a way to make sense of the senseless. In Hannah's case, 4 main theories emerged. Theory 1. Animal attack. This was the initial assumption. Murchison Falls National Park is home to lions, leopards, Nile crocodiles, hippos, and buffalo, all animals capable of killing a human. Hannah had wandered away from the lodge after dark, violating the most fundamental safety rule. Maybe she'd encountered a predator. Local rangers and some police investigators supported this theory. The park is dangerous at night. Animals hunt. Humans are vulnerable. But the evidence didn't support it. No blood anywhere. No drag marks in the soil. No signs of feeding. No bones. No remains. Nothing. And most critically, the clothes. Predators don't carefully remove clothing. Dr. Emmanuel Kawuma, a wildlife biologist with 30 years of experience in Uganda's national parks, was consulted. His assessment: in 30 years, I've never seen a predator remove human clothing so carefully. If she was taken by a large cat, we would find something. A leopard might drag prey into a tree, but we searched every tree in a 5-kilometer radius. If a crocodile took her, we'd find evidence at the riverbank. If a lion killed her, there would be blood, bones, something. This doesn't fit any predation pattern I've ever seen. Theory 2. Human abduction. This theory gained traction among international investigators. Uganda, like many countries, has issues with human trafficking. Could Hannah have been abducted? Could someone have been watching the lodge, waiting for an opportunity. Evidence supporting this theory. The clothes were removed, suggesting human involvement. Hannah's phone was never found, which could indicate robbery. The park, while fenced, has areas where someone could potentially enter or exit. Evidence against it. No vehicle tracks were found in the area where the clothes were discovered. Lodge security logs showed no unauthorized persons on the property. Gate records showed no vehicles leaving the park at unusual times. And critically, Murchison Falls is a fenced national park. Getting in and out unseen, especially with a captive, would be extremely difficult. Interpol got involved, checking databases for similar cases, looking for patterns. Nothing matched. The trafficking theory remains possible, but unproven. Theory 3. Voluntary disappearance. Some online theorists suggested Hannah had chosen to disappear. She'd been experiencing relationship strain with Peter. She'd written in her journal about becoming someone new, about needing to prove she could stand alone. Maybe she'd planned this. Maybe she'd walked away from her life. Evidence supporting this theory. The journal entries about identity and independence, the relationship tension, the fact that she'd been changing, becoming more distant from her old life. Evidence against it. Everything else. Hannah left her passport, her wallet, her camera equipment, the possessions she valued most. She left without saying goodbye to her family, whom she was close to. She was about to complete medical school, about to start her career, and psychologically, nothing in her history suggested suicidal ideation or a desire to vanish. Her friends were unanimous. Hannah would never do this. A psychological profile conducted by Dutch authorities found no indicators that Hannah was planning to disappear or harm herself. Theory 4. Accidental death. This theory suggests Hannah wandered from the lodge, perhaps disoriented or upset, and died accidentally. Maybe she fell into the river and was swept away. Maybe she was bitten by a snake and wandered in delirium before collapsing. Maybe she removed her clothes due to paradoxical undressing, a phenomenon where people experiencing severe hypothermia feel hot and remove their clothing, though this typically happens in cold environments, not tropical Africa. If she died in the wilderness, scavengers could have scattered or consumed her remains before searchers arrived. This theory can't be ruled out. It's possible, but it doesn't explain the careful placement of the clothes, the distance from the lodge, or the complete absence of any other remains. But there was one more piece of evidence that investigators had been analyzing: Hannah's camera footage. The Sony mirrorless camera was examined by digital forensics experts. It contained 47 hours of footage from the trip game drives, the boat safari, meals at the lodge, candid moments with friends. The final recordings became crucial. April 19th evening footage showed dinner at the lodge. You could see the group dynamic, the tension that was building. Back in the room, Hannah had been filming her equipment setup, probably for a behind-the-scenes video about her documentation process. Timestamp 9:52 p.m., the last clear footage before the argument. Audio captured raised voices, Sophia's and Hannah's, though the words weren't entirely clear. Then Hannah's voice, clear and close to the camera. "I just need space." The camera was turned off. That was the last intentional footage. But here's what the forensic team discovered. The camera had been in Hannah's bag, and at some point after she left the room, it had been turned on, possibly accidentally. Maybe she'd bumped it while reaching for something. Maybe the power button had been pressed in her bag. Whatever the reason, the camera recorded audio for 17 minutes, from approximately 11:20 p.m. to 11:37 p.m. Most of it was muffled, the microphone pressed against fabric, but audio enhancement technology pulled out some sounds. Footsteps, Hannah's breathing, the ambient sounds of the African night insects, distant animal calls, wind through trees. And then, at timestamp 11:34 p.m., a sound that made investigators pause the playback. A voice, not Hannah's, male, speaking Luganda, the local language. The audio was too distorted to make out words, but linguistic experts confirmed it was Luganda, and it was close, maybe 10 to 15 meters from Hannah. The discovery of that audio changed the investigation. If there was another person there, speaking Luganda, then this wasn't an animal attack. This was human involvement. But who? And why? Every lodge employee was interviewed extensively. every guide, every security guard, every maintenance worker. Background checks were conducted. Alibis were verified. Moses Odongo, the safari guide, was questioned multiple times. His movements that night were accounted for. He'd been in his quarters, confirmed by other staff members. He had no motive, no connection to anything suspicious. He'd been guiding tours for 12 years without incident. Local villages near the park were canvassed. Had anyone seen anything unusual? Had anyone heard anything? Nothing. The voice on the audio remained unidentified. Some investigators theorized it could have been a poacher. Murchison Falls, like many African parks, has ongoing issues with poaching. Maybe Hannah had accidentally encountered poachers, and they'd... What? Abducted her? Killed her? But why? And where was the body? Other investigators thought it might have been a park ranger or security guard, someone who was supposed to be patrolling. Maybe Hannah had encountered them, and something had gone wrong. But again, all personnel were accounted for. The audio was released to the public in hopes someone might recognize the voice. Thousands of tips came in. None led anywhere. Sarah and Jan Bergman flew to Uganda on April 22nd, 2 days after Hannah disappeared. They stayed for several days, walking the same paths their daughter had walked, talking to investigators, pleading with anyone who would listen. Sarah gave an interview to Ugandan television. "She was my world," she said, her voice breaking. "She was brilliant and kind, and she had her whole life ahead of her. Someone knows something. Please, please help us bring her home." Jan barely spoke. He couldn't process it. His daughter, his Hannah, who'd grown up in the bookshop, who'd filled notebooks with observations about the world, who'd chosen Amsterdam over America because it was home, she was just gone. Luca stayed in Amsterdam. "I can't see where she disappeared," he told his parents. "I can't. I'll lose my mind." The family stayed at Para Safari Lodge, in a different room from the one Hannah had shared with Yuki. Every morning, Sarah would walk to the terrace where Hannah had last been seen. She'd sit at the same table, looking out at the same view, trying to understand what her daughter had been thinking, where she had gone. After a week, they had to return to the Netherlands. There was nothing more they could do in Uganda. The search was ongoing, but it was clear that if Hannah was going to be found, it wouldn't be soon. Before they left, the lodge management installed a small memorial, a plaque with Hannah's photo, her dates, and the words, "Forever Searching." It's still there today. Peter never went to Uganda. He couldn't. The guilt was too consuming. That final message from Hannah, still in his WhatsApp, "I'm sorry about earlier. Can we talk tomorrow? I love you." He'd been asleep when she sent it. He'd woken up the next morning to missed calls from Yuki, and by the time he understood what was happening, Hannah had been missing for 12 hours. He wrote a response that he never sent. "I love you too. I'm sorry. Come home." 6 months after Hannah's disappearance, Peter was still checking her Instagram daily. Her last post, "Into the Wild," finally, had become a memorial. Thousands of comments from people who'd never met her, offering prayers, theories, support. He couldn't delete her contact from his phone. He couldn't pack up the things she'd left at his apartment, a toothbrush, some clothes, a stack of medical textbooks. He couldn't move forward because there was no closure, no body, no answers, just absence. He started seeing a therapist who specialized in ambiguous loss, the unique grief that comes when someone is gone, but not confirmed dead, when there's no funeral, no grave, no ritual to mark the end. "It's like she's both alive and dead," he told the therapist. "I can't mourn her because maybe she's still out there. But I can't hope because where would she be? It's been months." Sophia, Yuki, and James all returned to their home countries. The internship that was supposed to be the highlight of their medical training had become a nightmare. Sophia struggled with guilt. The argument had been her fault, at least partially. If she hadn't pushed, if she'd just let Hannah edit her footage in peace, maybe Hannah would have stayed in the room. Maybe she'd be alive. Yuki had panic attacks. She'd wake up in the middle of the night, convinced she heard Hannah's voice calling for help. James tried to bury himself in work, but he couldn't focus. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that terrace, that empty chair, that room key sitting on the table. The 4 of them had gone to Uganda as friends. They'd come back broken. In the absence of answers, The internet filled the void with theories, some plausible, some absurd, all persistent. The most discussed theory online was the trafficking network hypothesis. True crime forums, Reddit threads, YouTube channels, everyone had an opinion. Some claimed there was an organized group operating in Uganda's national parks, targeting solo tourists, especially women. They pointed to other disappearances in East Africa, drawing connections that may or may not exist. Investigators did look into this seriously. Interpol examined border crossings, checked for patterns, interviewed trafficking experts. The conclusion was that while trafficking is a real problem in the region, the logistics of abducting someone from a guarded safari lodge and transporting them out of a fenced national park made this scenario extremely difficult, though not impossible. Another persistent theory involved a cover-up. Some online theorists claimed the lodge or the Ugandan government was hiding something, that Hannah had died in an accident that would be bad for tourism and evidence had been destroyed. This theory gained traction among conspiracy-minded communities, but had no supporting evidence. The Ugandan authorities had been cooperative and transparent, allowing international investigators full access. Then there were the fringe theories. Some people claimed Hannah had been taken by a cryptid, a creature unknown to science. They analyzed the audio from her camera, claiming the unidentified sound was something non-human but also not a known animal. They compared Hannah's case to other unexplained disappearances in African wilderness areas, building elaborate theories about creatures living in remote regions. Wildlife experts and zoologists debunked these theories thoroughly. There's no credible evidence of cryptids in Murchison Falls National Park. The audio, while containing an unidentified sound, was most likely a known animal or environmental noise distorted by the recording conditions. But the theories persisted. They still do. If you search Hannah's name online, you'll find hundreds of videos, articles, forum posts, each offering a different explanation for what happened that night. The truth is, nobody knows. It's been over a year now since Hannah Bergman disappeared. The official investigation is still open, but active searching has stopped. There's only so long you can search 2,400 acres of wilderness before you have to accept that if there was something to find, you would have found it. The case file remains on the desks of investigators in both Uganda and the Netherlands. Hannah is listed as a missing person, not deceased, because without a body, there's no legal declaration of death. Her family is stuck in limbo. Sarah and Jan can't fully grieve because there's no confirmation that Hannah is dead. But they can't hope, because the rational part of their minds knows that after this long, the chances of her being alive are essentially zero. The bookshop in Amsterdam continues to operate. Jan goes through the motions, opening the shop, helping customers, ordering new inventory. But the joy is gone. Hannah used to help out on weekends, recommending books to customers, organizing the children's section. Her absence is everywhere. Luca is in his second year of university, studying engineering. He doesn't talk about Hannah much. It's too painful. But he keeps that last text message she sent him before the safari. "I'll bring you back something cool, I promise." She never got the chance. Peter eventually packed up Hannah's things from his apartment, not because he wanted to move on, but because seeing them every day was destroying him. The items are in boxes in his parents' attic. He can't throw them away, but he can't look at them either. He's not dating anyone. He can't imagine it. How do you move on when you don't know if the person you love is dead or alive? There are lessons here, painful ones, but important. If you're planning to travel to remote locations, wilderness areas, safari parks, please, be careful. Stay together. Follow the rules. They exist for a reason. Tell people where you're going. Keep your phone charged. Check in regularly. Adventure is beautiful. The world is full of incredible places that deserve to be explored. But safety matters more than any photograph, any experience, any moment of solitude. Hannah Bergman was brilliant. She was kind. She was adventurous. She wanted to see the world, to help people, to document the beauty of life. Those are admirable goals. But she made one decision to leave the safety of the lodge after dark, alone, upset, and that decision cost her everything. We don't know exactly what happened after she walked away from that terrace. We don't know if she encountered an animal, a person, or simply got lost in the darkness. We don't know if her death was quick or if she suffered. We don't know where her body is, if it still exists, if it will ever be found. What we do know is that Hannah Bergman was 23 years old, with her whole life ahead of her, and on April 19, 2024, she walked into the African night and never walked back. Her family deserves answers. Her friends deserve closure. Hannah deserves to be found, to be brought home, to be laid to rest with dignity. If you have any information about this case, please contact the Netherlands Embassy in Uganda or the Masindi District Police. Even the smallest detail could be significant. Leave a comment below sharing your thoughts, your theories, or your support for the Bergman family. Sometimes the internet can accomplish what traditional investigations cannot. Someone out there might know something. Someone might have seen something. Your comment could trigger a memory, a connection, a lead. Hannah's story isn't over. Not until she's found. Not until we have answers. Not until we bring her home. Somewhere in Uganda, in the wilderness of Murchison Falls National Park or beyond, there are answers. Maybe they're buried in the earth. Maybe they're scattered across the savannah. Maybe they're locked in someone's memory, waiting to be spoken. The search may have stopped, but the questions remain. What happened to Hannah Bergman? Where is she? Who was the person speaking Luganda on that audio recording? What did Hannah see that made her say, "Oh," in that tone of surprise? Why were her clothes laid out so carefully? Where is her phone? These questions haunt everyone who's followed this case. They haunt her family every single day. They'll continue to haunt us until there's resolution. So, I'm asking you, everyone watching this, everyone who's made it to the end of this story, don't let Hannah be forgotten. Share her story. Keep her case alive. Talk about it. Post about it. Make sure that Hannah Bergman's name and face are known, because the moment we stop talking about her is the moment any chance of finding answers dies. Hannah was a documenter. She filmed everything, wrote everything down, wanted to capture life in all its complexity. It's tragically ironic that her own story has no ending, no final chapter, no resolution. But maybe, with enough attention, with enough people caring, with enough pressure on investigators and enough eyes looking at the evidence, maybe we can write that final chapter for her. Maybe we can bring Hannah home. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. And please, share this everywhere, social media, forums, with friends and family. The more people who know Hannah's story, the better. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for not letting Hannah Bergman be just another statistic, another missing person file gathering dust. Her story isn't over. Not yet. Not until we find her. Not until we bring her home.